Hi, my name's Tom Stanier. If you don't already know me, I am a freelance sound engineer based in the northeast of England. And if you do know me, hello, and thank you for sticking by me for the past 10 months. Certainly, if you have me on social media, I know I've done my fair share of angry, frustrated rants in multiple posts to Facebook and all of the other various bits of social media that I'm on. I thought I would make a video. I don't quite know what I'm going to say, but maybe over the course of this I will be able to voice my frustration in a slightly more coherent way than I have been able to over the past 10 months. I am one of the 3 million people who have been excluded from the UK government support schemes through the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the 3 million people who have received no meaningful support since March. It is now the 23rd of January 2021, exactly 10 months to the day that the UK was put into its first national lockdown. I think we knew about the fact we were going into a lockdown on around the 16th of March last year, when Matt Hancock made a statement in the Commons about the requirement for social distancing measures and other things to control the virus. On the 20th of March, the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, announced the furlough scheme, which would be to support the jobs of those who are employees. Now, understandably so, after that announcement on the 20th of March, there was a great level of anger and despair from millions of self-employed people in the UK who felt like they had been left behind and not taken into account. And it was a week later, on the 26th of March, that the Chancellor came back and said that they had devised a scheme for the self-employed, SEISS, SEISS, the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme, which has been a lifeline for many, admittedly, as has furlough. However, upon reading the small print of the eligibility criteria for the schemes, many people, millions of people, realised that they would not be eligible. One of them was me. Now, I need to explain my working history to explain why I am not eligible for SEISS. Many of you watching this who know me will know me through my work at the Witham as technical manager. The Witham in the now infamous Barnard Castle. I was technical manager there for 3 years between 2015 and 2018, and specifically I left in September of 2018, September the 12th. So when SEISS was announced, it would have been 18 months since I had resigned from that job. 18 months since receiving a paycheck from a PAYE source. Now, I've been excluded because of the 50-50 criteria that the government put in place for SEISS, which meant that to receive any support through the Self-Employment Income Support Scheme, you needed to earn over 50% of your annual income from self-employment. Now, I'd argue, as I've already explained, that 100% of my income comes from my own self-employment, and had done for 18 months at the time that the scheme was announced. Now, 28 months after I left the job, I still am excluded because of the salary which I earned from the Witham. Now, the level of unfairness, the sense of being wronged is huge. To not have any support through the pandemic, any financial support, has been pretty debilitating, to be completely honest, and to be excluded for the reasons which I have been done so are, it just simply seems unfair. There are millions of people in the same position as me, and there are so many gaps in the support schemes put in place, chasms that people have fallen into. There's 3 million people who've been unable to access, cease, or have been denied furlough by their employers where they should have rightfully been given it. One of the most frustrating things over the past 10 months, having been excluded, is at every point in which the Chancellor and many other Conservative MPs have been asked about the gaps in support, their response is always about what they have done and supported people with, and how much support they have given since March, which is all well and good. However, that doesn't make it any easier for those who have not received a penny, those who have received no meaningful support since March. It's fantastic that so many people have been supported, quite rightly so. When a government imposes restrictions on people's work, they should be compensated for the fact that they are unable to do their jobs, unable to make a living. But to be told how amazing the support packages are and how much money has been spent on other people is not helpful for me and the 3 million others that have received nothing. It makes squat all difference how much money and how much support there have been to others when I myself have not benefited from it. Now, there is huge pressure from the largest APPG, an all-party parliamentary group, for the gaps in support. 270 cross-party MPs pushing for parity for 3 million people who've been left behind by this government. The Treasury Select Committee, again, on multiple occasions, urging the Chancellor to change the exclusionary policies to help support those who've been left behind. However, it all simply falls on deaf ears, and it has done so for 10 months. All the responses are what they have done for everyone else. And when we are actually acknowledged as those who have been left behind, we are tarnished with the brush of being tax evaders or fraudsters. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I've worked for 10 years. I'm 26, nearly 27. I've worked since the age I was 16. In fact, I've worked since I was 14, but I wasn't even able to be legally put on a payroll, so I worked in kind for a grant at the age of 16. For 10 years, I've paid my taxes and national insurance. As an employee, I had no choice in the matter, and as someone who is now self-employed, I still have no choice in the matter. It's a legal requirement to pay tax and national insurance. So to be painted as a tax avoider it's infuriating. I have been above board with everything I've done in my entire working life. I've never worked any kind of job where I've earned money cash in hand. Everything has gone through my books, and yet I'm still painted as a fraudster. The language used around those who are self-employed, coming out the mouths of government, out of the mouth of the Chancellor, is divisive. It is, on the whole, complete mistruth. I count myself as someone who's actually been fairly lucky through this pandemic. My wife has been in full-time work, she's an NHS employee. We've had, as a household, an income through this whole pandemic. Admittedly, with me earning very little, our household income has dropped by 70%. But we're able to just about scrape by. But it's gutting to see so many other businesses failing through lack of support. People having to sell their houses and their personal possessions just to keep a roof over their heads. And most heartbreakingly, we are seeing reports of suicide, people taking their own lives because they have been unable to support themselves and their families, thinking that the best way is to not be here at all, which is an unbearable thought. There's a group, a campaign group called Excluded UK, which I've been a part of since it was made back in May. And because of the lack of government support, both financially and mentally, with mental health provision having been decimated over the past 10 years, this group is now fundraising to provide mental health provision and support for those who have been left behind. This isn't a group that should exist. It's only there because of the exclusionary policies of government. We have a Chancellor who's unwilling to listen, who's seemingly unwilling to close the very gaps that he's devised. It has been financially debilitating the past 10 months. As someone working in an industry which obviously relies upon the gathering of people, large social gatherings, alongside a virus which spreads through the interaction of people, I couldn't really be in a worse position. Between mid-March and April, I had lost 50% of my income, 50% of the confirmed bookings in my diary for 2020. And as this pandemic has rolled on, I, even up to a few weeks ago at the beginning of January, was still cancelling work into the future 10 months in, I've now lost over £40,000 of work. Now, I've applied for absolutely everything that I could possibly have done, yet still received not a penny in government support or local authority support due to the way that I chose to run my business. Now, obviously, as someone who spends his life on the road, I don't have a premises. I don't do any face-to-face interaction from a business premises, so I don't need one. So I have a converted garage with security, CCTV, a deadbolt, and a workshop built into my house where I store my equipment. Due to that, I am not eligible to apply for local restriction grants, the discretionary grants given to local councils, because they have set their own criteria, and my local authorities decided that you cannot apply to these if you run from a domestic premises. Further rounds of funding, such as the additional restriction grants which the government gave to local authorities, alongside guidance to say that those who have not been able to apply for other local restriction grants should be prioritised. However, because those funds were still able to be set and the criteria set by local authorities as a discretionary fund, Darlington Borough Council had still decided that you could not apply for the additional restrictions grants if you ran from a domestic premises, despite the guidance given to them by government. Many will argue that there is disparity in the schemes themselves between cease and furlough. The obviously very generous offer of furlough is far more than what people will receive from cease. There is a cap limit on profits for those who are self-employed to receive funding from cease. If you earn £49,999 in profit, you would receive the full £2,500 grant. Yet if you earned £50,001 in profit, you receive nothing. There is no such limit in furlough. An employee on £1 million salary would still get £2,500 a month had they have been furloughed. But the disparity in the actual schemes themselves aside, the fact that 3 million people who have not been able to access them at all is the biggest flaw. So all I can do, and all 3 million people have been doing for the last 10 months, is to urge the government to change the criteria for those of us who have been left behind. We are the small businesses, the small, medium-sized enterprises who will be vital to the recovery of the economy once the pandemic is over. But we won't be here if we don't receive the same financial support as has been offered to others. We're not asking for anything more, we're simply asking for parity. I think I can't really say very much more. And if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. All I can ask from you, if you're still watching, is to write to your MP, push for support of those who have been left behind, follow Excluded UK on Facebook, follow the APPG's progress, watch the select committee meetings for gaps in support, become enraged, fight on the behalf of the 3 million people who've had nothing. Thank you for watching.